Unable to bear it, Climb spoke up. Sorry to interrupt, Lady Everly, about the new Adamantite rank team. What are the members' names? Yes. One was named Momon. He is the leader and known as the Dark Hero. Apparently they don't have a team name, but people call them Jet Black. Whoa, huh? And the other members? Asked Gagarin. It is a two-person team. He works with an arcane caster named Nabe, known as the Beautiful Princess. Just two people? What is up with that? Are they just ultra-confident idiots? Well, no, they're Adamantite rank, so they have some tricks up their sleeves then. And what do they do? Climb listened in too. This was a team that reached Adamantite rank. They must have done things no ordinary person could imagine. He knew even before hearing them that the stories would be thrilling, and his heart buzzed in anticipation. I heard they did it all in the span of 2 months. But first, they handled an incident in Rantle with several thousand undead. Then they wiped out a coalition of goblin tribes coming up from the south. They gathered ultra-rare herbs in the Tove woodlands. They subdued a gigantic basilisk, and they destroyed a division of undead that streamed in from the Katsi Plain. I also heard they took out an immensely powerful vampire, a gigantic basilisk. Climb gasped. Basilisks were huge monsters. They were similar to lizards or snakes, over 30 feet long. They had a petrifying gaze. Their bodily fluids were so poisonous they caused instant death. Their skin was so thick it was comparable to mithril. In short, they were the worst enemy. If this party could defeat a monster capable of devastating an entire city, it was no wonder they had reached Adamantite rank. There was just one problem. That was that it's pretty amazing. But did they really do it with just 2 people? A gigantic basilisk has to be impossible to manage with just a warrior and a caster. That can be true. Yes, that was the catch. It would be virtually impossible to do it with 2 people. Especially with only a warrior and a caster. How did they heal? They couldn't possibly defend against a basilisk's every special attack, the petrifying gaze, poisonous fluids, and so on. Oh, sorry, I guess I can say they are more than just 2. They also tamed the wise king of the forest, and it serves them. The wise king of the forest? What kind of monster is that? Asked Gagarin. Climb remembered hearing the name in some folktales, similar to the sagas of adventurers. But he felt it would be rather impertinent to chime in at this point. I don't know the details, but folklore has it that the wise king of the forest is a magical beast who has reigned in the Tove woodlands for eons. Its might is supposedly unrivaled. Someone I know went to the Tove woodlands a long time ago, about 200 years ago, and didn't see it, but she said 200 years with a shrug of her shoulders. If she were an elf, that age would be entirely possible, but from her attitude, Climb concluded she must have been joking. Whoa. So how much of all that is true? It has to be mostly exaggeration, right? People usually exaggerate when they tell stories. It was difficult to accurately count corpses found in pieces. Adventurers sometimes made outlandish claims, so stories simply became wilder and more grandiose. However, Everly wagged a finger disapprovingly. Tusk. No, apparently all this is true. The first rumors after the Rantle incident claimed he defeated an undead giant by throwing a sword. Then he broke through an undead mob of thousands. This information came from surviving guards who witnessed it. They all said the same things, so it doesn't seem to be exaggerated. They confirmed he beat the 2 ringleaders behind the mob by examining their corpses, and that was after he defeated 2 skeletal dragons. Climb asked the speechless Gagarin, would that be hard even for you? If the several thousand undead were zombies and skeletons, it wouldn't be a problem. Could break through. I could probably also manage 2 skeletal dragons somehow, but the 2 ringleaders who caused that big of an incident, I don't know. I can say for sure if I don't know their abilities. The unofficial consensus is that they were from Zuranorn. Are you serious, Everly? If we were talking about their disciples, that'd be the end for me. It would be rough after all that other stuff. And if I made the slightest wrong move, got poisoned or paralyzed, I'd be done. How do they heal? Do they rely on potions? Or maybe the warrior Momon can use faith magic like our leader, or maybe the beautiful princess can deny the possibility? Everly nodded, but a giant basilisk would be impossible. For a warrior, someone who mainly fights at close quarters, that's a serious challenge. I have Gaze Bane, but I'd still be in trouble without support. There's your answer, Climb. Apparently it'd be impossible for Gagarin on her own. So it would depend on what the woman, Nabe, can do. If we fought together, we could do it probably. Yeah, if she were on your level, they'd be more than strong enough. If you made it a mostly ranged battle, you could probably beat a gigantic basilisk on your own without even going all out. No, that would be impossible. I would need to apply my full power. If you were with me, the only opponents it would make sense for me to handle from those two incidents would be the skeletal dragons. So I'd basically be relying on your strength. With an Orichalcum rank caster, there'd just be no way. Climb felt puzzled. Was Everly really that powerful of a caster? Usually teams were composed of members around the same strength. Plus, Everly and Gagarin had been adventuring together all this time. Would such a significant gap really open up under those circumstances? That's not true. I know how strong you are, Gagarin. You can definitely match these newcomers, Climb assured her. Thanks for the praise. All right, do you want to sleep together? No, I respectfully decline. And that's why you're a virgin. It's like not eating when a meal is put in front of you. You don't get a prize for keeping your virginity forever, you know. What will you do when it's time to sleep with your real woman? Do you want her to complain about how bad you are? Is that what you're into? Are you a masochist? Gagarin made all those assertions without waiting for Climb's response. He then heaved a conspicuous sigh. Well, I want to force you. I am good for it anytime, so if you want to, just say the word. But hey, how embarrassing is beautiful princess as a nickname? She can possibly live up to it, right? Apparently Nabe is quite beautiful. At least, according to what I heard. Climb sensed Everly's gaze for just a moment, and understood right afterward that she had indeed glanced his way. She's as beautiful as the Golden Princess. Gagarin turned mischievous eyes on Climb. Anticipating what she was going to say, Climb made the first move. Appearances are a matter of personal taste, and for me there's no one more beautiful than Princess Rena. I see. The tone was distinctly disappointed. We've been chit-chatting too much. Sorry to make you go along with this nonsense. We'll follow Lachius' orders and begin preparations now. Gagarin and Everly stood up. Climb followed their lead. Sorry, Climb. There's a lot I'd like to do with you, but it seems we don't have time for that anymore. Please do not worry about it, Gagarin, and Lady Everly, thank you for the informative discussion. Gagarin looked at Climb and gave a tired laugh. Well, that's fine. Okay, so you're probably going back now, right? Take care of our leader. Counting on you, Virgin. Oh, and make sure you equip your items. That sword on your hip isn't your usual weapon, right? No, this is a backup. You never know what will happen. Whatever you do with your armor, you should always carry your sword. That's the proper attitude for an adventurer, especially as a warrior. And do you have the items I gave you? The bells? Yes, I have those right here. He patted a pochette on his belt. Okay, good. Remember this, all we warriors can do is swing our weapons, but sometimes that's not enough. Magic items fill in that gap for us. Acquire lots of them and don't let them go. And make sure you always have at least 3 healing potions. They've saved me before. He had 3 potions but was currently carrying only 2. Climb indicated his acknowledgement. You're surprisingly caring, don't make fun of me. Everly, sorry to have held you up. What I mean to say is, don't slack on preparation and precaution. Understood. Climb bowed deeply to Gagarin. 33 Late Fire Moon, September 60 a.m. There were 9 men and women seated at the round table. Despite the fact that the chiefs from all 8 divisions of the 8 Fingers had gathered, they hardly spared a glance for one another. Instead, they examined the papers in their hands or exchanged words with their subordinates behind them. The atmosphere made it seem like 8 completely separate groups were holding a meeting. It wasn't quite a powder keg situation, but everyone was obviously cautious. They acted as though they were surrounded by threats. This was their natural state of affairs. They shared loosely symbiotic relationships within the same organization. However, they often fought over conflicting interests. True cooperation rarely materialized. For instance, the drug-dealing division oversaw every aspect of their business. This included production and distribution. They would never work with the smuggling division in the drug trade. Even if the divisions were never openly hostile, it was utterly ordinary for them to obstruct and frustrate one another behind the scenes. Detrimental behavior like that was the result of once separate underworld syndicates coming together. These people were on good terms with one another, but they participated in the regularly held 8 Fingers Division Chief meeting in the capital for a good reason. Those not in attendance were often purged on suspicion of potential treachery. That made it so even those who rarely visited the capital came all the way over for the meeting. Even those who normally stayed holed up in safe places came, in a sense, out in public. It was no wonder many feared assassination and brought along escorts, a pair of elites, the maximum number of attendants allowed from each division. Only one came alone. Okay, everyone else assembled. Let the regular meeting begin. At the sound of a voice, chairs creaked as people settled in. The speaker was the man who would run the meeting, the leader of the Eight Fingers. He appeared to be around 50 years old and wore a water god sigil. With his gentle face, he didn't seem at all like someone deeply involved in the criminal sphere. We have a number of issues, but the first we need to deal with is Hilma. The one who answered was a pearly white woman. Her skin was so pale she seemed ill, and she was dressed completely in white. A snake tattoo climbed to her shoulder from her hand, which held a pipe emitting noxious purple smoke. Her lipstick was the same shade of purple as her eyeshadow. Clad but lightly, her figure exuded the decadence of a high-class prostitute. She yawned conspicuously. Could we have done this any earlier? We were discussing the raids on your narcotics cultivation facilities. Someone attacked some villages with production equipment. It cost a fortune. It may result in reduced supply for distribution. Do you have any information about the raiders? Nope. They did a perfect job of it. That's why I have an idea who it might have been. Which color? Everyone there knew exactly what he meant. I don't know. We just found out about it. How could I figure that out so fast? I see. Well, everyone, that's the situation. If you have any information, raise your hand. There was no response. They either had no information or they didn't want to share it. Then next, hey, a low sound came, a tremendously powerful man's voice. All eyes gathered on him. He was a bald man whose face was half obscured behind a beast tattoo. Everything about him was big. The bulges of his muscular physique were clearly visible, even through his clothes. The cold gleam in his eyes gave off the impression of a warrior. Every other chief had brought escorts, but there was no one behind this man. Of course, there wasn't. What good was it to bring someone along who wouldn't be any help? He glared at Hilma, chief of the drug-dealing division. He probably didn't mean to glare at her, but it was hard to see a look from his razor-thin eyes as anything else. The escorts behind the woman caught their breath for a moment. They understood the gap between their abilities and his. That man was a monster capable of massacring everyone in the room. Why not hire us? Your small fries don't have what it takes to guard the facilities, right? Zero was in charge of the security division. It provided everything from doormen to armed escorts for nobles. He was even more famous for having the highest combat ability in all the Eight Fingers. But his proposal, no need, was flatly rejected. We don't need you. And we can have outsiders knowing where our critical bases are. That was the end of that. Zero's eyes closed as if he lost interest. It was like he turned into a rock. In that case, I'll take you up on the offer. The one who had spoken was a slender man. His lithe build was the exact opposite of Zero. I'd like to hire a man. What Kokoda can you pay? If Hilma's drug dealing was fairly lucrative, Kokoda's slave trafficking was on the decline. Since the Golden Princess had made slavery illegal, he had to shelter his business further underground. I am good for it, Zero, and I'd like one of the best, preferably 6 arms class. Oh, Zero seemed interested for the first time in the meeting, and his eyes opened back up. He wasn't the only one who was surprised. Almost everyone there felt the same. The 6 arms was a collective term for the 6 members of the security division with the highest combat ability. It came from the fact that the god of theft's sibling had 6 arms. Of course, at the top was Zero, but the other 5 were no less powerful. There was one said to be able to cut space, another who manipulated illusions, and even one who was an immensely powerful undead and elder lich. If Gaze of Stronov and Adamantite rank adventurers were the strongest of those in the light of day, the 6 arms were the strongest of the underworld. Employing one of them meant only one thing: you were in that much trouble. Okay then, take heart. My man will guarantee the safety of your assets. So sorry to trouble you. An issue came up with a woman we were planning to dispose of. It might be going overboard to enlist so much power, but if our shop gets taken out, I'll have problems. So yeah, I'll consult you later about the contract and fee. That's fine. Is immediately after the meeting all right with you? There is something I'd like you to do right away. got it. I brought a man with me so I can lend him to you. Okay, I am moving us on to the next topic. Is there anyone here who knows the new adamantite adventurer Dark Momon? Has anyone invited him to join us? Intermission Charling. Charling came the sound of precious metals clinking together. Upon confirming there was nothing left inside the leather pouch he appended, Aints lined up the gleaming coins on his desk. He made stacks of 10 each, gold ones and silver, and counted them. After tallying the mountain over several times, he picked up the bag and peered inside again. There's really nothing in here. After confirming it, he flung the bag away and held his head in his hands. There's not enough. I don't have anywhere near enough money. The human face he created using an illusion warped darkly. Of course, the pile of coins before him was a fortune. An ordinary person from this world wouldn't be able to earn that much even over dozens of years. But as the ruler of the great tomb of Nazareth, and as the only one earning foreign currency, he felt extremely uneasy about the amount. Aints' emotions were forcibly calmed if they fluctuated beyond a certain range, so his shocked mind would be immediately stabilized if he had, say, a single silver coin. When he had some gold coins, however, that didn't happen. The slight reassurance in a corner of his mind caused steady irritation. Aints shook his head and began allotting the coins to different uses. First, these are additional funds for Sebas. He removed a huge chunk from the mountain of gold, and his face twitched. Then this is the money Cocytus requested to support the restoration of the Lizardman village and cover equipment costs. The mountain moved again, and all that was left were a few gold coins. The stuff we'll be sending to the Lizardman village are necessities. If I buy at the Adventurers Guild, I can use my adamantite connections. I should be able to get everything a little cheaper for maybe this much. A few coins returned from Cocytus' funds. Aints counted the remaining money and muttered, getting some merchant to sponsor me would be ideal to earn some kind of regular income besides adventuring. There were only 3 adamantite rank parties in the kingdom, including Aints'. Because of that, merchants occasionally requested him by name. In general, the kind of work they wanted was simple compared to how much he got paid, and he wanted to take those jobs by all means, but he had been hesitant up until now. He wanted to avoid giving the impression that the adventurer he was playing, Momon, was greedy for cash or would take on any job as long as he was paid. His plan was to make Momon into the kind of adventurer everyone would praise, and then transfer all that glory to Aints Ul Gown when the time came. For that reason, he had to pay attention to his reputation. But I have no money. I really don't need a room like this. Aints scanned his splendid surroundings. He was renting the nicest room in the best hotel in Rantle, so the cost was nothing to sneeze at. Aints didn't even need to sleep, so there was no point in his taking a room this splendid. He would have wanted to use this money for other things. That went for food as well. Even if he was offered luxurious meals, Aints couldn't eat, so they were meaningless. It would have been smarter to refuse and save the money, but Aints knew full well he couldn't do that. Aints knew Momon was the sole adamantite adventurer in this city. There was no way someone like that could stay in a flophouse. Food, clothing, and shelter were points of easy comparison. An adamantite adventurer had to maintain the lifestyle of an adamantite adventurer. It was all about looks and honor. That's why Aints couldn't downgrade his inn, even though he knew it was a waste of money. If I am worth anything to them, I could probably get the guild to arrange lodgings for me. If I just asked them, I bet they would, but he didn't want to owe anyone. Up until now, he'd done things like taking on last-minute requests in order to incur debt. Once he'd saved up enough favors, he intended to collect on them. It might take a near threat, but he was prepared. If he asked a favor for something as mundane as this, his plan would get messed up. I don't have any money. What should I do? I guess I have to take a job. But it doesn't seem like there are many high-paying requests lately. And taking on too many is asking for ill will from the other adventurers. If he was going to make Aints Ul Gown into an enduring legend, he wanted it to be in a good way, not a bad way. Aints gave an imitation sigh and counted up the rest of the gold coins. He wanted to burn into his mind how much spending money he had. Speaking of money, what should I do about the Guardian's salary? Aints hummed as he leaned back in his chair and lifted his gaze to the ceiling. The Guardians all insisted that they didn't need a salary. They said there was nothing that made them happier than serving a supreme being. They thought receiving some kind of consideration for it would be absurd, but Aints wondered if it was really all right to take advantage of them like that. There should be a fair price for their work. When the Guardians declared that being able to devote themselves completely to the Supreme Beings was consideration enough, Aints had a hard time accepting it. Maybe it was just him, who used to be a human working as a company employee for pay, but he couldn't simply discard the idea that work deserved compensation. He was worried about throwing these children who knew nothing of salaries into it, but he still felt a system was worth adopting as an experiment. The problem is what to pay them with. His eyes moved from the ceiling to the small amount of gold coins on the table. If I gave some of the Guardians the going rate for managers, it'd be 15 million yen. Sholtia, Cocytus, Aura, Mare, Demiurge, and then Albedo should be even higher.